So I can bring the softbox back with you. No problem, sir. You got it for me though, thank you. I think what I'm gonna do, man, I'm gonna put a light over here just to be safe. I wanna be sorry later. You feel me? You ain't fucking with me?
Huh?
You ain't fucking with me?
No, we live.
Oh damn. That a bitch. Don't catch me.
You kind of with some curse.
I'll be cursing, damn it.
No, I can. What? I thought it was cool that Karen sister got with the sweater.
It's cool when you got
Yep, I had my back and all these. Yep, I got to take it to my maker, right? I said, I'm a new man. I'm not still.
this is in case somebody knows I'm still this is similar to the aperture.
Oh. Huh? No, I know. But it's dark. But it's dark. Okay, thank you, Mark.
You're welcome, brother.
Thomas back here?
I'm sorry.
Hey, DeRay Taylor. Yeah, UBS. Keenan Mom? Keenan.
This is Sterling on me.
Sterling? Nice to meet you. Bro. What's up?
Nice to meet you, bro.
On the left side.
Mark, Ryan, nice to meet you. Hi, Ryan, nice to meet you. Hey, nice to meet you. Mark, nice to meet you. Where everyone is. You know what? I think they're making themselves comfortable here in the chairs here.
Okay.
So, but comments would have it later. Okay.
What's his name?
Brother, you saved us all.
Out here.
I was waiting for someone to say full stack.
Come on, let me tell you. Right here. Look at the definition of the word. Not much, right? Not much, right? That's what I want to make sure. Did he saw standing there? Did he see the difference on his face? So, Stand behind the podium just for a second. Same thing, Mark. I miss it in his face. I check it out. Look, I can definitely shout at the shows. Oh, was it you were looking?
I'm just looking at him first. Go ahead.
See right there? There we go, solid.
I never tried it. It's going to be very hard, right? Because when you think about the and I work in farm, right? So we do a stock. Like, in the future, what is and then they actually know that I'm that's where I'm wondering where does that where does the flaw just on the sheer fact of the ability to track things at actual level, right? So I've been listening to myself, that's why but like, at the end of the day, it solves the integration. I'm working training for a long time. We had to fix one. Well, that's standardization. Really all good things.
Yeah, get some more B-roll shots too.
Steve, get on that too. People signing in. Get some of that.
Yeah, check it out.
Oh, you already got something.
No, got something? I
We
mean,
need more. So more B-roll than anything, right? More B-roll than better.
B-roll, yeah. More B-roll the better.
So get the screen, everything you can put the camera on, speakers, whatever.
Yeah, look at that. We believe you, bro. We believe you.
Just you, whatever you think you got enough, get twice.
You guys all here together.
That's great. Like what you get? Don't like what you get? If you don't, take it off. Take it off. Like that better? Use this one right here.
What up, boy? Good to see you, bro. Good to see my people. How you doing? Good. Good. Make us smell.
You want to know what service you're using to stream YouTube?
Everybody, we're going to get started in about 10 minutes. Okay. So listen, we spent some good money on this food. There's good food in the back. Trust me.
There's your call.
Grab a plate. We're going to get started
Right there.
in about 10 minutes, but get some food, please.
You got it. It's on your YouTube page, so that I'm glad that I got you. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes even more sense.
So, no, it's supposed to be, it's
Because I'm gonna turn the camera
Widescreen for real. I'm right up on it. We didn't know.
But I, well, if anything, they would drop my camera down. What I was gonna get to him. Well, this morning I had waffles, bacon, and earlier I had free cookies, and
As long as it's down.
no, it ain't bad. Mother Nature, man.
That ain't Mother Nature.
Got your back, brother.
Y'all want me to jerk?
Like if you do the guy before
You hear that little bit? I was in on, or you said it, all the package, you know.
my Aunt Manny. I had to.
Or it's all the package. I can't say nothing. Can't say nothing.
How do you talk?
Wow.
We got a lot of boxes. Yeah.
All right, everyone, please take your seats. I'm going to go ahead and get started.
Yep.
Take your hot seats. All right, everyone, if you will go ahead and take your seats, we want to go ahead and get started. All right, welcome. This is a great crowd tonight. I made some personal invitations to some people I really respect in Chicago, some investors, some entrepreneurs, some business professionals. It's really great to see everyone in the room, so I appreciate it. We're doing something really interesting and different here tonight, and I think that if it works, we're going to find out whether it works or not, because we're really in the sandbox together. But if it works, I think it could be something that really galvanizes Chicago and gives underrepresented founders who are looking for critical solutions in their businesses but don't necessarily always have the connections or the resources an opportunity to really jump over a lot of pitfalls very quickly. So with that said, I'm just going to give you a quick introduction to a few things. Most important, because everybody wants to be online, do the social media thing, if you need to use the Wi-Fi, then the network is Blue Lacuna Guest 5G, and password is Blue Lacuna 2018, capital B, capital L, 2018. I'm in a good mood tonight. I'm in a good mood tonight. All right, expectation setting. So just to lay down a little bit of background on how we'll engage tonight. First, I want to share how you connect and actually engage on social media. My parents did a great job branding me. I am Thomas K.R. Stovall, and you can check this. This is a fact. I'm literally the only Thomas K.R. Stovall online, on all of the internets. It's amazing. Thank you, Mom and Dad. You can't pay for that kind of brand. So at Thomas K.R. Stovall on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, as well as on the web. My business partner, Jason, where you at? Raise your hand. This is Jason Stewart. Anything y'all see that looks pretty, that has I'm Black and Tech's name on it, he does all our design, all our development. Jason also runs a web and branding firm here in Chicago. They work with small brands, large brands, some of the fastest growing medium-sized hair care brands in the country. You can talk to him about that. But you can find Jason on LinkedIn at Jason B. Stewart, Facebook, AllSpark Interactive, and on the web, AllSpark Interactive. I'm Black in Tech. I'm usually pretty literal about things, so you can just find us at I'm Black in Tech anywhere online, on any social media channel. So that's pretty simple. Okay, and if you want to tweet, post, share about the event tonight, the hashtag is Hot Seat or I'm Black in Tech, and that's how we're going to be trending. So how to give feedback. I run a feedback company, so I'm pretty maniacal about making sure that anytime I gather people in a room, I make sure that we find out how we did, whether or not the information or the experience that we gave you met expectations. So you're going to bookmark on your cell phone, laptop, or tablet. Just take out if you have a phone, raise your hand if you own a cell phone. Right. You, sir, in the back are lying. I'm looking right at you. There we go. Okay. So if you've got a phone, do me a favor. There's nothing to sign up for, nothing to download. Just go on your mobile browser to candidfeedback.com and bookmark that on your mobile browser. Once you get there, you're not going to do anything. I'm going to give you a 7-digit code after each one of these founders presents, and you're going to be able to give them feedback in real time. We're going to crowdsource that feedback from them in the room, and we're also live streaming this event to people online, so they'll be able to give feedback. So even if you don't come to the mic and share solutions or suggestions that you have for the founders at the microphone, you can do so via my platform, so they get the training from you. Okay, background. Just a little bit about me so you know who I am. I'll give you a quick background. I call it a 2-minute drill. I started my first business out of my dorm room at 19. I've been employed for literally 8 months in my adult life. I do have an electrical engineering degree. I've never used it. I apprenticed at a real estate private equity investment firm out in LA. When I was 25, got to see how real estate and money moved kind of at a monopoly board level. And I came back to Chicago with that knowledge and turned $3,000 that I saved up while working for that 8 months into 7 figures in 18 months. And I managed to lose that all by age 30. It's a fascinating story, but I'm not going to tell it tonight. I did get back on the horse at age 30 and started back up in business. What I do now is I run I'm Black in Tech. It's a membership organization. We support, celebrate, and educate founders and professionals of color in 40+ states and 11 countries around the globe. We do that through various programs, live event-based trainings, small things like this that you'll see that we kind of test out and see if we can move people from point A to point B. But that's what we do. I also run a micro-feedback company, and the name of it is Candid. We use 1-question surveys. We call those micro-surveys that are tagged by context, by location, and by delivery method. That allows us to put these 1-question surveys out in the physical environment on digital screens and physical locations, on T-shirts, on the side of cocktail napkins, the side of glasses, bottom of a dinner plate, and we aggregate feedback from many different sources, online and offline, to tell one clear story about many different aspects of your brand. So we work with Ford, we work with Diageo, we work with the largest trade show producer, one of the largest trade show producers in the country, to help them to understand their clients and their partners better. And last, I do some speaking for large corporations, and I come in and basically help them to leverage the knowledge they already have in their organization, because no one knows your organization better than your people. Mostly you're just not asking them the right questions. So that's a little bit of background about me, about I'm Black in Tech and Think Like a Startup. So Hot Seat, what is this that you're here to participate in tonight? All of you, if you're sitting down, you probably saw the agenda that is under your seat. Xavier just pulled his out. He was warming it up. So this is a pretty simple format. There's 10 founders, and I worked with them to put together what we call help decks. This is not an investor deck. This is not a client presentation deck. This is what we call a help deck. It is built to, in 3 minutes, help anyone, no matter whether or not they understand your business or your industry, understand what you do, who you do it for, how you do it, how you make money, how you plan on growing, all the critical elements of your business. And after that first 3 minutes where they share that with you, they're going to take 1 minute and outline the one biggest challenge that they're facing right now inside of their business. So there's 14 minutes per founder. After that first 3 minutes and the 1 minute, we take 10 minutes, and you people in the room who I've invited who are business professionals and subject matter experts and entrepreneurs and your investors, you have a very unique perspective on building business. And we've invited you tonight so you can share. When you hear something that somebody's going through, you'll come to the microphone and take a minute, 90 seconds, whatever it might be, and say, well, you know what, from my experience, here's how you want to attack that problem. Or here's how I've seen my colleagues or customers or other founders attack that problem. So we're looking to literally crowdsource solutions for founders right here in the room directly from our community. So another thing that you want to understand is that our community is not just this room, it's all around the country. It's people who are tuning in from everywhere. So we're going to use my software to take the people that are watching this event via live stream, and they'll be able to contribute as well. So guidelines. Once a founder has presented their help deck, they don't get to speak again. What you notice a lot of times when you have people at the front of the stage, they're getting feedback, they get defensive, they're trying to explain themselves. That's not what this is tonight. What this is tonight is an opportunity for them to be very crystal clear in sharing what it is they do, and then sitting silent for 10 minutes while people who actually know what they're doing share what they need to be thinking about. Some of it they may use, some of it they may throw out, but they will sit silently and just take the feedback. That's why it's called Hot Seat. And this event is meant to move at a rapid pace. So please, please, when you come to the mic, just make sure that your feedback is clear, concise, right on point so the next person can share. All right, our goals, twofold. One, founders get qualified feedback and suggestions about the biggest issues they're facing in their business right now. Number two, we hope the founders can get some exposure to connections with potential business partners, potential clients, and that's the goal. So without further ado, our first person presenting is going to be Chelsea Spray-Regan from Pi for Providers. Is Chelsea in the room? I know she actually had an investor call. I'm not sure if she stepped out for a minute. Is Chelsea back there? No? Crickets? All right, so we're actually going to move right along. The first presentation is going to be from Tara Reid, Apps.co. So we have a mantra. You don't have to get ready if you stay ready. So they don't know the order tonight. So Tara is going to tell you a little bit about her business. But on your cell phone, go to this little code right here at candidfeedback.com. At the end of her presentation, you'll be able to give her feedback on anything that you think she ought to know, even if you don't come up to the microphone. So that's 711-9-774-R. All right, T, you're up.
Okay. If I stand over here, can you guys see me? Okay. So, my name is Tara Reid, and I run a company called Apps Without Code. So we teach people how to build their own apps, web apps, mobile apps, without knowing how to write any code. And we also, so we do that by running these 12-week programs that help people build their app, but also build a really solid business model and marketing strategy around that. And we also take our programs and we license them to other organizations who want to launch instant accelerator programs. So we bring the coaches, we bring the curriculum, and we kind of launch that program immediately for them. So we teach entrepreneurs how to build profitable apps. We've been around for 18 months and done $500,000 in revenue. And we're profitable and have entrepreneurs we work with in 14 different countries. So just problem here. So the average tech entrepreneur gets quoted or spends $10,000 plus to build version 1 of their app to get their app built for them. And so just for some context on why I'm really qualified to help people kind of find a solution to this. So in 2014, I built a really successful art app called Collecto. And I happened to also build the app and the algorithm, the art matchmaking algorithm that ran the app without writing any code. So I ended up kind of blogging about my experience, did a TED Talk on the topic, and all of a sudden had so much interest in entrepreneurs wanting to learn how to do this that it kind of spun off into its own business. So we offer 12-week training programs. They happen via video chat and via a gamified online learning platform. And 67% of the entrepreneurs who go through our program are generating revenue in 3 months. We're really different as a solution if you can compare our program to like a traditional coding bootcamp or a traditional accelerator. Different because one, this is a DIY solution, so you're not going and hiring someone else and then you have to pay them more money every time you want to make a change to your product, right? You now know how to actually make changes to your own product. It's built for and by entrepreneurs, and we also have a focus on profitability. So many of the entrepreneurs who go through our programs, they may choose later on down the road to take on venture funding, but we focus on helping them build businesses that don't need it. And so here's an example. Josh is an entrepreneur who most recently went through our program. He ran a music school, runs a music school in Florida. And so he runs these after-school programs for students. And he gets asked by high schools a lot to go to the high school and run their program. They're understaffed for their music programs, or they've had their music programs cut, and so they ask him to come. But he can only be at so many schools at once, right? And so he built this platform that gamifies the experience of teaching music. It's actually a platform for music teachers, but for teachers at schools who don't have like a ton of music background. And so they can teach it. He's licensed his platform to 23 schools and has over 300 students using his app. So this market size of Coding Bootcamp specifically is a $135 billion market. We actually specifically focus on a really niche specific segment. So folks who are age 30 to 44, African American, they have experience in specific industries like healthcare, manufacturing, education, or tech. And we choose this specific audience, frankly, because that age range, because they've got enough disposable income such that they can afford the programs. And also because it's really easy for us to run ads to these segments. I've operated as like the face of the brand, and people like to buy things from people who look like them. So our ad cost is really low. So this is kind of what the bootcamp pricing looks like. And our main costs are ads, which end up being $176 per student, and coaches who teach the program at $333 per student. I can't see that far.
11 minutes.
Oh, 11 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I have 11 minutes to keep presenting.
No, you have 1 minute to keep presenting.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
got it.
Need
Okay,
to frame your problem.
great. So I'm gonna jump forward. I have 1 minute to frame my problem. Okay, I'm gonna jump forward. This is our sales process. I can come back to this if folks have questions. This is what we want to do this year. This is a conservative projection for us. Okay, and I'm going to just jump into one of the main areas where we need help, which is I'm going through this process of creating an advisory board. So we don't have investors. We've intentionally not taken investors, but I really want to put together an advisory board of folks who are helping and supporting us. I've gone through this crazy process of creating this spreadsheet of all the folks in my network. I've reached out to a lot of people. I'm really excited to have like the types of people who are responding back, folks who are at top nonprofits, folks at top VC firms who've been in my network who are interested in helping. But I need to put together some sort of structure so I'm not wasting their time, and so that I can kind of get them together and really get great insights out of them. And so my question for you guys is, how should I be structuring these calls? Is it a quarterly thing? Is it an annual thing? It's probably not going to happen in person because folks are everywhere. I want it to be low work for them, but I want to have a clear structure for the call such that like I'm really getting something out of it, and that they're getting something out of kind of being in the room with each other, but also are able to have like a clear way to add value. So that's one of my main areas where I would love you guys' help.
Cool. So hold your applause. This is where the work starts. We have about 10 minutes left. That's Tara's real challenge. So this is where y'all in the audience actually give some value. So if you actually have some ways that she can do that or things to be thinking about, please come to the meeting.
Okay, so I think the first thing you need to think about is what is the function of your board? I think a lot of times people get board members because that's just what you do. So if you don't know why you're having board members, you probably won't end up with the right combination of people, right? And you won't know how to utilize them to best help you. So I would say before you structure the calls, figure out why you have the board, what it is that you want to get from the board, learn from the board, right? Is it their resources? Is it their networks? Is it some strategy around your business and growth? Once you figure that out, then you'll be able to structure your calls because you already have the end goal in mind.
I'm good to grab my.
That's it. Somebody else can help her.
Okay. So
So what I say is, I'm on a lot of these types of boards, and one of the things that's really helpful is up front, identifying whether this is a task-focused advisory board or whether this is a true advisory board, meaning that they are simply providing verbal advice. And so the give that they're giving is their time. The difference is oftentimes people approach folks because they're like industry experts or they're subject matter experts or they have capital, they have networks or whatever, and they end up turning it into a task-focused board, which one is not the sell, and that the upfront sell, and that has a way of really, you can damage a relationship like that. I've walked away from folks because I'm like, you asked me for advice and now I'm doing work. You're not paying me for this. I'm out. And part of it is when folks are really, really busy, they really do appreciate when you organize out what exactly you need. So setting it up and making sure that they understand up front why they're coming to the table and what the give-get is. In nonprofits, they have give-gets as a financial thing and a network thing, and it's very clearly articulated. For-profit advisory boards, you know, the question of whether they're giving time, talent, or treasure, or all of those things, and defining what those things are. Right, so if it's time, then it's simply saying, hey, come in, you got a 30-minute meeting, it's gonna be once a month, or it's an hour-long meeting once a quarter. We're always gonna be talking about these things. It could be even like you've structured this, where you've identified a clear problem that you have for 2018, or maybe it's something just for the quarter or just for the half year, and making sure that they're there as like the task force for that. They're an advisory for that, and it's specifically, you specifically brought these people in the room for that problem. If it's broader than that, then let folks know that this is an advisory board for Apps Without Code. Anything that might be a problem for us.
For people, number one is I try to find somebody who is highly critical, but they have some experience in that particular area. Because if you've got somebody who's gonna always poke a hole in your balloon every time, it just keeps things really, really grounded. Person number two is generally an entrepreneur that has no experience in the area that you're building in, but they're really accomplished. So what they bring to the table is ideas that are totally outside of the box, but you can usually pull out something that is a fit for your industry that you hadn't thought about because they're not really coming from your frame of reference. Number three is going to be somebody who absolutely has experience in your industry and has built something very similar to what you're trying to build and like either exited or is at the top of their game right now, because they're going to be able to tell you all the things to think about that you have no clue that are coming right now, but they're going to be able to give you the specific guidance. And person number four is your actual customer. So you want to go to them up front and let them know, I'm not trying to sell you. This is not a sales call. I really just want to understand, like, how would I sell to a person like you? What's the value proposition? How do you listen to an offer like this? And, you know, that person tends to add a lot of value. And once they really understand your business and, you know, get behind you, it becomes really natural for them to want to actually help you get inside of their business as well. Because they say if you want money, then like ask for advice. If you want advice, ask for it. Anybody else have any feedback, suggestions? Okay, cool. So Tara, oh, go ahead. She has about 5 minutes left. You're done. You're going into 25, so 3 minutes. Okay, let's come this way.
Okay, perfect. Sarah, so first of all, this is awesome. We were talking before. I love what you're doing. The one thing I would say on the advisory board, well, just boards of any kind, is because some people do it for credibility, like they want to put together this board, they can slap the faces and pretty titles on their website. If that's not your priority, like Watching was saying, I'd really think hard about if you actually need to formalize this, or if you have people that you can just call up ad hoc, because I have a board of directors meeting for Blacks in Mecca this Saturday. And it is a pain trying to like organize everything. People flying in, oh they can't make it. I gotta order food. Like it's a lot. It's a lot of management. And so I would think really hard about who these people are, who you think they could help. You know, take Thomas's advice, but really just ask yourself a critical question if you need to formalize it, or if there's specific challenges you're facing, and you can just go have a call with somebody and take it from there, because I would hate for you to get boggled down with then having to do more people management. You know, you already have your team to manage, and managing a board, it can be tough too sometimes.
All right, so we've actually got time for about one more comment. Sarah's got about 90 seconds left. Does anybody else have any feedback, suggestions specific to boards? Anybody, there's some really seasoned people here. You know what I'm saying.
What's to do with the gray hair? Hey Tara, Tony Lucas, how are you? So, to piggyback on what Fabian said, I'm on a number of boards and I hate to meet in person. But I have no problem with taking a text, a phone call, an email, a phone call, a video chat about something very specific. So I would advise that your advisory board be the people who can walk you into a certain vertical that you're trying to approach.
Thank you, sir. All right, so everybody give a hand to Tara for being in the hot seat. So that's how this is going to go. What I'm going to do now is take us back to Tara's micro survey, and we're going to take about 90 seconds for people that are watching online as well. If you're in the room, maybe you're a little bit shyer. Go to candidfeedback.com, drop this code in, and you'll be able to give Tara any feedback or suggestions that you might have. So we'll wait about a minute, and we'll give it to the next person.
Okay, that was really fun.
All right, about 15 more seconds. See some hands popping up. Get moving. Okay. So next up, we've got a fabulous couple. Who's going to be presenting on behalf of Tim and Kim? Both of y'all coming up here? So we got Tim and Kim Lewis. They are the cutest couple online.
Oh, thank you. These are our products covered on proper stands. I'm just put them on the stage.
All right, so to prepare when Tim and Kim get done, again, you'll be at candidfeedback.com. Here's their 7-digit response code. Take a few seconds, drop that in, and you'll be ready to go.
I can talk loud. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, perfect.
Awesome.
Oh, using my, oh yeah, we have live stream.
Oh, okay, so we're gonna pass it back and
I'm glad
forth?
about my business.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Kim, CEO and co-founder of Chromix, and my husband, he's Tim, CEO and co-founder of Chromix. So Chromix is handcrafted hair care products by us, but they were handpicked by our customers. So we had a do-it-yourself subscription box, like the Blue Apron for hair, and we basically took our best-selling boxes and turned it into a hair care line. And then we let our customers vote on that, and vote on the fragrances, and vote on whether or not we should even produce it as a line. So we validated it very, very early on, and not vote by just, here's a vote, we vote with their dollars. So we would launch a product, and before we would make it, we'd make sure we had money for it, or they paid for it. So our product line that we launched, our flagship products are flaxseed gel. You see my hair? Clap for this if you like my hair. Yeah. So I got this curl by using flaxseed gel. Flaxseed is literally the flaxseed you at Whole Foods. You would go and you would come home, boil the flaxseed, strain the gel, probably burn yourself because it's really, it's a dangerous process, and then figure out how to put it in your hair because it's kind of snotty, but it's going to give you the best curl of your life. It's a natural, safe alternative. But it goes bad in a few days, and it's not available in stores, and big manufacturers refuse to make it. But curly hair women love it. Wavy, curly, kinky. So it works for a large market. I'll let Mahoney jump in.
So we've launched several dozen products over the last couple of years, and like she already mentioned, the way we validated everything was One, by already doing it. So we already launched our flaxseed gels. We're doing like a soft launch period. We've launched with micro-influencers and stylists, and we've been able to generate this product that we call a one-product wash and go. It helps to achieve that wet, curly look. It's long-lasting, it's safe, non-toxic, and it's overall healthy for your hair. So the benefit for us is that, the benefit for our customers is that they don't have to make it anymore. They don't have to risk, toxic ingredients. They don't have to risk burning their hands. They save time and money by only having this one product to achieve a great style. And of course, they always want to look good. And so the key differentiator for us is that we don't use artificial flaxseed oil or additives in our product. We use pure flaxseed gel. It's organic. The other thing is that our biggest customer complaints for other flaxseed gels is that they smell bad and that they also leave a cast. So we've been able to also solve that with the proprietary manufacturing process that we came up with. And after pivoting, we've now scaled our business within the last month. We've 3x. So we're growing very, very fast. We've launched it. We're about to do our full-scale launch. We're also entering a new vertical on Amazon. And just so you know an idea of what the market size is, this is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and it's one of the only parts of the hair industry that is actually growing. We just had our first unicorn exit. And then to get an idea for our specific market, we got about 40,000 searches for our product on Amazon in every month. And if we can capture any percentage of that, we're going to be doing extremely well. And we've already done, our goal for the year is about 350K. And we hope to capture about 2% market growth per month over the next few months. And so we'll outline our number one challenge right now.
So it's like my husband said, we're growing really fast, right? Faster than we've ever grown. This month we did our highest revenue to date, 21,000. At the beginning of the year we were doing about 3,000 when we dropped our subscription. And so it's going really, really well. But, and if we launch on Amazon we've done $2,000 in just 1 month organically, no ad spend. So when we actually start putting money behind it, we're going to kind of grow like weeds. But we don't have the production to match the demand. So we need advice on how to expand. And so basically to make flaxseed gel on a large scale, we know we would need like a tilting pan. We can make 500 bottles in a batch. But we need to kind of ramp up production. We probably need maybe 20, 30K or something like that.
Yeah, so we have a kind of come at it from 2 issues. One, we need a facility that allows us to cleanly produce and manufacture this product. It does require a kitchen, it requires heat and different things like that, so it needs to be professional equipment. And then on top of that, we also will need money to scale up the production process, people in place to kind of take the burden off of us so we can focus on growing the business, and then securing any other money we might need for marketing and things like that. But as far as the product itself goes, it has a very healthy margin, and as long as we can scale production fast enough, it will be profitable.
And just to frame, I didn't mention it, but we made over $300,000 in revenue prior to the pivot. It was just that we knew the opportunity was in the pivot.
Okay, we've got about 9 minutes left. Does anybody have any suggestions, feedback specific to how they scale manufacturing their gel on a budget? Patrick, yeah, you got a manufacturing background. Come on up. Come over here.
How you doing? All right, so first thing I thought about is like as you're solving the manufacturing problem, also think about distribution at the same time. So you don't want to like have your manufacturer, because I'm assuming you'll probably do like some type of co-man setup where you'll have somebody make it for you. So you have to be like really, really clear on what your formula is, what the quality is based on that, making sure that the machinery can actually deliver to that quality that you want, and thoroughly going through that process of making sure that you test it out so that you can get it, and also that the efficiency of what they can make is really sound. So they need to be able to spit it out to whatever your demand is without messing up your quality. So having the processes to be able to safeguard that and the integrity of what you make, especially when I'm hearing like there's like shelf life and stability, and I'm assuming there might be some stuff that might fall out of suspension and all that type of stuff. So as you think about like where you source that from and how much your distribution is, you may even have to consider like multiple points where you have it manufactured, so it can be most cost effectively delivered to whatever your client base is. Yeah, so I can talk with you more about that, like offline.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so for people who else may be manufacturing, how do they actually find and get the help with the processing if they don't know how to do that?
Sure. Well, actually, locally, and I'm trying to remember her name. I think it's Erica Dickinson. Yeah.
Sister Scientist.
So she calls herself Sister Scientist. I met her. I know she is here local and actually helps like the scale up. Then I actually know another young lady back from my hometown who literally has launched her own cosmetics line that I can get you in contact with and can probably share some very good insights on what she's done, because she's actually done what you all are looking to do. So she'd probably be like a really good resource just to ask about how they got started and how they're making things rock and roll, because they're successful at it already. So yeah, just holler at me like offline, and I'll give you as much help as you want.
I know Eric does.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that was the only reason I haven't reached out.
No, that's all I'm gonna say.
So, also, Jason, do you know anything specific about the manufacturing? Because I know you work, so Jason, if y'all have heard of Miele Organics, they're one of the fastest hair care brands in the country. Jason does their design and stuff like that. So do you know anything specific that might be useful?
Not specific from a manufacturing perspective, but I do work with Erica, so I can introduce you to her.
Okay. All right. Anything else on how they scale manufacturing on a budget? Yeah?
Yeah, so there's a couple connections I can look into. So one for space, ICN, have y'all ever heard of ICNC? So ICNC is over in the Fulton Market District, about 416,000. It's ICNC is about 416,000 square feet. Actually, I came upon them. I used to fund workforce programs, and somebody asked me to come over there and check out. They've got about 100 small businesses running out of there. But they have a small business development center that helps specifically with distribution, supply chains, and specifically looking at manufacturers. I first got impressed by the place because I met Christia Donaldson, because she started TGIN out of there. That was her space. That's where she did all of her manufacturing out of there. They helped her out with equipment and all that stuff. So for space, I would strongly encourage y'all to look at them. You can rent out space. It's not as expensive as a lot of places. It's created under a federal grant, which means that there's a lot of subsidies. If you all are already registered under some of the minorities or diversity supplier channels, that'll likely give you a little bit more opportunities. The second thing I would say is IMEC. You ever heard of Illinois Manufacturing Excellence Commission? So Dave Boulay is the president of that. He and I used to work together several years ago. But IMEC is a great partner in that. They were the ones who helped to push the manufacturing enterprise zone. It's over in Goose Island right now. And also M-Hub. Yeah. So once you get into that space, M-Hub, Colony 5, IMEC, you get into that space, you'll start meeting the folks who can probably direct you to where you need to go. But for space, I would definitely start by looking at ICNC.
As Myth, you've already addressed this, it wasn't in your presentation, but before scaling, I would look into one, getting a patent so no one else can come in, a bigger business can come and take over what you guys are working on, or some sort of protection. And second, get some sort of certification. You're saying it's organic, you're saying it's natural. That would help with your case, getting the approvals that you need. It helps. And also, when you're producing this, where you're going to produce it and how you're going to produce it, and all sorts of other certifications to make it a bit more legitimate and choose the packaging that you want. Because once you've got these key foundation built, then the scaling part's going to be easy. You can go to a co-packer, there are all sorts of different avenues that you can take. But I think I would first kind of protect the brand before.
Okay, I don't know anything about manufacturing. However, what part of this was about money that you guys need for manufacturing, is that right? So, I've been going through a really interesting journey of figuring out what other alternative funding sources are, and I've been particularly looking into what it looks like to get lines of credit. and then also some small business loans. And traditionally, that's really difficult. Like, I think I started and I do my business banking at Bank of America, and they're like, you haven't been around for 5 years, so no. And I was like, yep, because I'm a startup. I had a lot of success with Fundera.com. They act as a broker for these kind of new, cool line of credit and loan distributors that are going to make their decision based on linking to your QuickBooks or your bank account, but then also like tying into your social media, looking at like your MailChimp account, other things like that. And you get really instant answers. It's database. They're not looking for you to be around for 5 years. And so like given some of the numbers that you guys have had, I think you guys could get a nice line of credit, like really small, like 4% and below interest rates.
All right. Any additional feedback, suggestions on scaling manufacturing, gel on the budget, or raising more capital around that? Oh, okay. Yeah, one more.
Yeah, so one more thing.
Xavier, approach the front of the room, sir.
Come on, man. Don't play with me. Have you all linked in with any of the community development financial institutions?
No, we just learned about those last week.
Okay, so some that I would suggest, Self-Help FCU, they've got a location in Little Village. As well, if you look at Urban Partnership and Chicago Community Loan Fund, CCLF was actually the underwriter. They're really good with patient capital, small businesses. They were the ones who underwrote a bunch of stuff that mostly black folks have done in Chicago that they could not get underwriting for from larger banks, whether that was actual.
What I do now is have DeRay. You're not ready? Are you don't have food fatigue right now, do you? Okay, come on up to the front. DeRay is with UBS. I want to give them an opportunity to share a little bit about the partnership that we have with UBS. They're actually a sponsor for this event. We're working with them on this program, which is called Pathways, with UBS and Village Capital, and we're supporting entrepreneurs here in Chicago that are underrepresented, Black, Latino, female founders to be able to grow their business. And UBS is a wonderful partner. They really are. So appreciate you.
I appreciate you too, Thomas. Good evening, everybody. First and foremost, as Thomas said, my name is DeRay Taylor. I'm the branch manager of UBS Private Wealth Management here in Chicago. It gives me great pleasure to be here this evening with all of you to kick off this VC Pathways hot seat event. UBS is ecstatic to be partnered with VC Pathways to help support underserved communities, to provide opportunities and mentorship to folks like yourself who are looking to take their businesses to the next step. The one thing I want to do, I'm not going to take too much time because obviously we want to get back to the presentations, which so far have been amazing. So I'd like to talk to both of you after because I think I know some people who want to throw some money at some of this stuff. It's just to thank all the people that made tonight possible. So first and foremost, Thomas Stovall and everything that you've done, working with everybody. Working with everybody, helping them get their decks together, and just being a driving force behind all of this because I think it's sorely needed in our community. Number two, Emil Cambry, 1647 Blue Lacuna, for giving us the space to do this great work. Village Capital for their national partnership on this program with UBS. My colleagues at UBS, the angel investors and stakeholders, all the entrepreneurs serving tonight, and obviously last but not least, our cohort of entrepreneurs that are presenting to everybody here. So again, I will get out of the way, but on behalf of UBS and all my colleagues, we appreciate the partnership. We look forward to working with you. We look forward to hearing more about you. And hopefully, you guys will be our clients in the future once you sell these businesses. Good luck to all of you. And again, thank you, Thomas.
Absolutely. Thank you. Just so you guys know, can all the UBS folks in the room, would you just raise your hand so we can see who you are? Yeah.
They want my feedback code. They're trying to.
Next time. So thank y'all for coming out. They're not required to do that. They're here because they actually want to support this community. They're authentically engaged. So I just want to take a minute and really say thank you for being a part of this program. Okay. So next up, we've got Be Safe Meds. And let me drop their code up for you. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah. All right, so candidfeedback.com, you're gonna go to 444139R, drop in that code, and when we get done here, you'll give a little bit of feedback. Set you up to go. You want me to stand there and push the button? You got it. So when you get down to 11 minutes,
Good evening. So we're Be Safe Mets, and we're for whatever happens. So what exactly is the problem that we were looking at is that a lot of people don't realize this, but by the time you're age 25, if you count it off in a Starbucks, a college campus, 1 in 2 people would have had an STD. So that means if you walked into a room, count it off, 1, 2, 1, 2, every second person has an STI. So think about that. So when we looked at the CDC information, 34% of the United States population has an STI. So that's 110 million people. That's all of California, all of Texas, all of Florida, and all of New York. So every single person in those states, if we just looked at it that way, has an STI. But not only that, the STI business is $16 billion. It's an industry that's unfortunately growing. So it's good for us, but bad for others. So when we were looking at the process, the original founder, his idea, he's my brother, he has 25 years of experience in the emergency room, so he's seen every possible scenario and treated. Our CEO comes to us from a healthcare legal background, so dotted our I's regulation-wise, so we're not getting into trouble with the regulatory services. And we have our marketing personnel who's addressing all our marketing issues. And myself, I do operations. So really, what is Be Safe Meds? We're STI specific, HIPAA compliant telemedicine tech platform. Our goal is to treat STIs in a convenient, safe way because most bacterial STIs can be cured if they're caught in time. And the expense is relatively minimal and it's a quick process. So part of the reason why we were looking at it is that the market size is about 38 million people, which is a third of the 110 million. And our focus is really on online daters, primarily because most of them are doing things they shouldn't do, and 53% of them are really dating more than one person at a time. Our challenges. So our main challenge right now is really that we want to focus on getting into 10 states, which requires us to hire practitioners within each state and address each regulatory board that's within each state. Unfortunately, telemedicine, while not new, the regulations within it is different from each state, but also each state has its own opinions of what the definition of telemedicine is, and so that regulatory issue is a concern as we go into each of the 10 states that we want to go into.
Of people that you have in the 5 states, the number of customers, is it in the hundreds or thousands?
Right now, we have about, we've treated about 200 customers in those 5 states in the past year.
So, you know, my feedback would actually be a little bit different than like how do we get to 10 states? My feedback would probably be like how do we own one state?
Okay.
And then how do we dominate a second state versus like going wide and not necessarily, you know, going narrow and deep.
Okay.
So that's my feedback. Anybody else? Yeah.
I'd like
If you come to the front, please. Y'all listen, man. You know what it is by now. Come on. Thank you for being a good sport.
I'd echo those sentiments, but I'd also say because each state has different laws, if you do want to expand, you can choose one state where you have the best revenue right now, and if you want to duplicate, because the laws are going to be the same in terms of what you're allowed to give or sell or how you're allowed to do that, then you can expand through that, but really focus, I would then say, on one state first. Expand from there.
One or two. hair looks phenomenal, man. I want to get you up on the mic so everybody can see it.
So this is, the advice that I have is the way you got the first 3 states where the doctor had a license in each of those 3 states, can you duplicate him in your business? Can you onboard doctors who have licenses in multiple states that you're interested in to get to that 10 number while keeping the hiring process minimal or the onboarding process as minimal as possible?
I'm willing to break the rules. That's a good.
Really want to do doctors because doctors are more expensive. So we're really focusing on nurse practitioners, physician assistants, and residents. So it would be possible. We just have to figure out how to get into the network of nurse practitioners or something like that.
So with the nurse practitioner network, can you set up a program in such a way that you utilize who you already have to reach out and in some way give them kind of commission or have them work as affiliates for you to onboard new people? So that way you don't have to do too much heavy lifting and utilize their personal relationships to get new people.
Hadn't thought about it, but it makes sense. We'll think about it. Yes. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ryan Kirby. I'm from UBS. My colleagues are back there. I actually work with a few companies and families that have similar models, but not for this segment. Just a few things to think about is your conversions not only for the doctors, but for the users. Because from the doctors, obviously the prescription will tail end. So just being have a model that actually makes sense that you can scale it up in the existing states that you already have, and being prepared for who's covering the backlash of if something doesn't work. Because that's a huge hurdle that some of the on-site doctors that we're using, essentially Uber for doctors.
Thank you.
So I have a quick question. I've been in healthcare for about 25 years. So when you say 2 in 1, well, 1 in every 2 people have an STD, for example, STI. To say you've only had 200 patients within that last year seems kind of small. So is there an opportunity to work more with some of the insurance providers or someone that can kind of create a channel for you to drive that volume? Because the state of Illinois should be just like a gold mine for you. So can she respond to that, or?
What y'all think? Can she respond to it?
She should be able to talk about saying no.
Listen, I'm being flexible. We're learning as we go here.
Yes.
Okay.
Because it should be something in it for them as well, so without hiring someone.
So the problem with using insurance companies is that if we treat an STI, it goes on your explanation of benefits. Some people don't want that on there because perhaps they were not with their significant other. Perhaps they were in another state and did things they shouldn't have been doing. If it comes up on your explanation of benefits, your significant other sees that. So a lot of people don't want it on their insurance. A lot of people also don't want it on their insurance because it goes to HR. Some people are afraid of that for career purposes. So that's why we haven't gone through insurance for that. The other thing is that people don't talk about sex. As open as society is, they don't talk about it. So there's a bit of a taboo for people to discuss sex and their potential STIs. Because I've sat on calls that we've had, and there are people whispering, and we're like, where are you? Are you in a safe space? And they're like, yes, but I don't want to talk about it. So it's still, it's a learning curve for people to be comfortable enough to want to talk to anybody about what they think they might have done or had. So that's the problem.
Hi, how are you? Tim McKnight from UBS. I'm in technology. So your technology question, really quick, it's extraordinarily important for you to know exactly what you want out of technology, because you will get steered in a million different directions by every guy on the street who knows the latest and greatest technology. But at the end of the day, you need to know what success looks like for your product. So how do we want to use technology, and come up with a very clear explanation to a technologist, and then get somebody who understands it. Because otherwise you could go off easily and spend thousands of dollars and end up with nothing. So make sure you know what you want from a business perspective. Like I want somebody to do this. And we can talk afterwards about certain ways of writing up your requirements, so it's very clear to say, here's exactly what I want. So then when you go to somebody, it's unequivocal. This is what I want. So before you even form a board, know how you want technology to drive your product, and have a very clear goal of it.
We've got about 2 minutes left. Come on with it.
Hi, so I have a marketing background, and I'm just responding to people whispering when there's no one around talking about this. Meanwhile, 1 in 2 people have it. So it seems, what I didn't hear, but maybe you're already working on it, but how to convey the benefit of talking about it, moving forward, they're not alone, and people want to get to that end state. And because that's powerful, because if it's pretty actually ridiculous if it's still stigmatized to talk about it with it being that big of an issue.
All right. So what I would say is I was actually watching it. I'm still unclear whether it's a product or a service. More of a service. So I think a lot about carriers for these types of things. The nonprofit space is really ripe with folks who have to hit certain metrics as it relates to services delivered to communities. And so when you look at that, there's often a very good opportunity for services as well as people who are selling products to be the subcontractors on that. The way to get to that is to look for the RFPs that are coming out. You can look at them either federally when they're coming out of some type of a health department. You can look at them locally, whether it's coming out of a private foundation. You can look at pharmaceutical companies or insurance companies that have corporate philanthropy departments and what they are asking to have done. Like, for instance, Blue Cross Blue Shield is saying, we really want to get into the market around preventative medicine and increasing health outcomes as it relates to STIs. You got an in right there. The thing you need to figure out is who they're funding and how they're delivering those services, and see why they're not using you to deliver those services. And those opportunities are literally everywhere. But think about where the nonprofit space and where the connections to private or corporate philanthropy or even government funding can play a role as basically your bottom line channel and be a subcontractor.
That's time. I want y'all to observe that this man has a skill set at shutting down the room every time. Every time somebody's done, right? Like he's the last person to talk. Every single time. Thank you. Everybody give a round for B-Safe Meds. So one thing I want to point out about the last presentation versus the first two is that the question was a lot broader. It was a lot more general. It was a lot tougher to actually get feedback because it was just kind of like this big thing. So what I really want y'all to focus on as you come up is think about how you can get really specific. And you might be saying, well, am I kind of being hard on it? This room is for us to be able to grow. When you ask very targeted questions, people can help a lot faster and a lot better. So just think about that as you come up. Even if you already had a question in mind, just like make it more targeted. Okay, so next up, we've got Mighty, Megan Renza. CandidFeedback.com. You're going to go to 4938-925R, and you'll see this again when she's done. I will do your slides.
So this is called Hot Seat. So I was thinking of what's the burning issue Mighty's working on. And appropriately, we hear about fire when we talk to people that we're building this product for. In essence, the majority of people in this country don't think that banks are on their side. Meanwhile, they collectively put $11 trillion into them. 93% of people do. That they say that 71% of millennials, that they say they'd rather talk to their dentist than a bank is, I think, a nice way to put this relationship. 1 in 3 millennials are going to control the majority of these $11 trillion. in the coming years. And 1 in 3 say right now they would change banks in the next 90 days if they knew of a bank that had their interests at heart. Meanwhile, there's a lot of banks in the country. We actually heard in some of the feedback, have you heard about CDFIs? There's 6,000 banks, and they're having a really hard time proving that they're on your side. Some get some bad press, but a lot don't necessarily deserve the bad press of others. So while they are looking to go on the map saying, we bank black, we bank green, we bank local, we want to work with small businesses in Pilsen, in Bronzeville, in Detroit, they do not know how to access a next-gen digital customer that's frustrated. So, I've spent, since 2010, studying the relationship between banks and the communities they serve. I started doing this actually with a global focus, inspired by the microfinance movement. Traveled to India, Kenya, Peru, and we filmed in Detroit. We made a film. It was shown at the Chicago International Social Change Film Festival, which Emil started. And it was eye-opening to learn that around the world, there is a strong consensus that community-oriented, socially responsible banks are critical to growing a strong national economy. It's like common sense. In the US, this detail is overlooked, except by a next generation that's increasingly knowing that socially responsible, community accountable businesses are critical to a strong economy. So, what we're doing is, for the public, just like maybe you never thought about, is your meat factory farmed or pasture raised, and perhaps you never used to think about, were my clothes produced in a sweatshop, or were they ethically produced? We're creating reporting now for the public, and we're working with some banks and doing this for their customers now, about how is your money in your bank being invested into neighborhoods, into issues, and these reports, you can think about, it's a labeling of banks. Banks in turn are partnering with us to understand how our audience is interested to engage in this conversation, and how do they respond, and how do they take a position moving forward to win audiences that they want to. The problem? Okay. So within a few clicks for the public, you'll know of the 6,000 banks, which ones are aligned. Wow, you're really, what about that? Yours is learning. All right. So within a few clicks, Mighty wants to put on the map the banks that, if you have $5,000 in a bank, showing you that if you bank with a bank like Urban Partnership Bank, which is one we work with right now, that they put 2 times as much of that money into local neighborhoods than if that money were at a typical big bank in Chicago. We have 10,000 people showing up at Mighty, asking us for advice of how to find banks aligned with, to serve their interests, like small businesses, like people like me, like leaders like us. We work with banks. We're closing 20 contracts in the next few months. We're always interested in introductions, but my question is, so, I am considered an underrepresented founder in banking and fintech because it's mostly males. But we're representing an underrepresented issue, which is how to drive system-level capital into neighborhoods. The banking industry wants these banks to survive. So my question is, we need ambassadors, ideally in Chicago, ideally from underrepresented communities, and I want to hear from you. Mine's going to be a little bit more personal. Have you thought about this issue before? If you have, why have you not changed a bank relationship? Why have you not diversified a banking relationship? And 3, will you publicly commit to being part of Mighty's Launch Chicago team in receiving reporting from us and trying out how you might orient your money to serve your personal or business interests?
Okay, so who's clear what the request is? Yeah? Okay. So who's not clear what the request is? Just so I'm clear.
So there's multiple
5 hands. I want to make sure that we can get some responses in. So I heard a few requests, so I'm asking if you're clear about the one request, because I'm not sure if there were one or a few.
Do you mind repeating it really?
I'm interested to know, it's a personal request. It's as you as all as individual leaders. Have you thought about the issue of what is your bank money doing before? Are you interested to align, to consider new banks, or perhaps advocate for your bank because they are supporting your interests? And will you use our reporting and become a Chicago ambassador for this issue?
Okay. So if y'all are clear about the request and you're willing to take that on, raise your hand if that's something that you're interested in. Okay, so I think a really useful point would be if you're not willing to do that, and you're willing to take a second and share, it might be useful for her to understand that. Would y'all agree or not? Because I generally want to know for people who don't want to use my product, if they don't, why they don't, and the people who do, why they do. So if we don't have a bunch of people who do want to use it tonight, it might be interesting to know the people who don't, so we can understand what the gap is. Come on, Watchman. And I'll actually be the first to share, because I have a really good understanding of what you do. And based on what I understand, you help people who are millennials generally that care about a cause find out what banks are actually investing in things they care about. And the people that want to move to banks that invest in what they care about, they have a really tough time finding those banks. And your solution helps them to find those banks really easily and move their money. So I don't happen to be a person who has like tons of causes out in the world that I'm investing in right now, so it's probably not the best fit for me because it's not on my conscious mind. So that's probably why I wouldn't be interested. It would take a lot of work to get me to understand, not understand, but get me to like care about that, because I don't have millions of dollars in a bank account somewhere. It doesn't feel as relevant. So for me personally, that's why.
And I'm someone who just does not think about my banking. So I've had, as a kid, I've had the same bank account. And then as an adult, I have like a financial advisor and that kind of stuff. So I'm someone who gives money very little thought in terms of like the day-to-day where it's going. And so for me, I think it would be a lot more like education that would have to happen on like why, like when we were doing black banks, so I opened a bank account with a black bank. I have an auto debit to that bank. I've never been there. Like I went to open my account and then I was like, I'll put money here for my nieces and nephews. It's not, I don't think about it. So for me, it would be a lot more education around why this matters, because I don't, on a day-to-day, think about it.
So as the representative of a big bank, I love what you're talking about. We hear about it literally every single day since Parkland. I think there's been over 100 clients that call us and tell us not to invest in this or invest in that. So it is something that is on clients' minds. That being said, we at big banks are also doing this. So as we think about moving forward, and the question is would I do this or would I not? Can I do the same thing at a bigger bank? Yes. And why would I put my money in a bank that's not as sound or as safe as a larger bank that has an established history? So I think providing the data that you can provide to our clients is awesome. And I think we need that. I don't know that it would prompt someone to move their money as opposed to prompt them to asking the question of the bank they're currently at.
Okay, so two thoughts. One on the B2C side and one on a B2B side. Right, so on the B2C side, like I'll just give my kind of personal feedback. I'm personally not someone, I don't care what the bank is doing with my money. However, I think that like what you're doing might work really well with like what I call a Trojan horse strategy, right? Like it's unlikely that a large volume of people are literally Googling like exactly what it is that you're doing. However, they're like Googling things like surrounding it, right? They're like, how can I give back? Or like now that I've started to like make, I'm in this cushy tech job now, like how do I like either invest my money or donate my money in a way that makes sense? So I think like what might be interesting even is like if you took that like Trojan horse strategy, even if you created like almost like these like cohorts of people, young professionals, whatever it might be, and kind of gave like, this is a program, like similar, like they do these like young investors kind of programs, right? So like a program that's more like, where do you put your give back money to? And like, this is part of it, but you kind of cushion it around. I think this similarly about my own business, right? It's called Apps Without Code, and really like the core of what folks need is like business and marketing skills, but I have to meet them where they are, which is I need to build an app. And if I build the app, everything will be perfect, right? So I think sometimes you have to meet people where they are. And then I think on the B2B side, there's a ton of opportunity, but I think it requires you to, like, for them being your customer. But I think that one of the things I've seen folks do a poor job with is like as they start to transition and think about that B2B thing to B2C to B2B, they have this like gung-ho, like fight the man spirit on the B2B side, and that messaging really flops when you go B2B because like you need to be their partner in this. So I think that there's a ton of money just sitting around for you helping these banks, but I think that it requires the messaging to be really different. If that makes sense.
So, my father was the chief lending officer at one of the few black-owned banks in the area. It's 87th and Stony. I can't remember the name. Illinois Service Federal. And you know my dad?
Me too.
And so, like, one of the things they were recently bought over the course of time. So one of the risks to your business, sometimes investing in the community, right? This may not be good for business, right? So you have to make sure that there's a liquidity aspect to it, that when you're recommending banks, that people's money is safe, because if you're recommending banks that have liquidity problems, you know, in the community, it could eventually, people won't want to deal with your business, right? Like, so you just want to make sure that that's a risk to your business of recommending banks that have liquidity issues. Sometimes investing in the community, albeit very good, right? You need to make sure that the bank is making proper decisions. And you know, there was one thing my father did throughout the years, not investing in subprime, things like that. Him and I talked extensively over it through 2008 and 9. So just one risk to your model. That's all I want to point out. Thank you.
I just wanted to answer your first question. Yes, thought about investing more locally, but obviously lack of transparency, lack of information. Now in this digital era where we can see, oh shoot, H&M just launched a shirt with a black guy in a monkey suit or anything like that. We have so much access, people are more riled up because they're seeing things on their timeline, getting an email or anything like that. So I think your service is gonna do well for people who care about those sorts of issues, and I think to other people's points that have been talking today, you're going to really challenge the big banks, the Wells Fargos, the JP Morgans, the Bank of America, to really strategize and change the way that they invest in the communities that they're living in. So I pledge to use your service in the future when it's launched. And I think everyone should. I mean, at some point, it doesn't take that much. We live in a day and era where you have Venmo, PayPal, Cash App. It's so easy to move, whether you have $2 or $10,000 to another account versus some other organization that's sponsoring your community and hopefully investing us in the future. So thank you.
All right, next time, give Megan with Mighty a hand. Truly good in the hot seat. All right, everybody. So next we've got Hani with Pay Data. Come on up. He's got a little fan section over there.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Hani. I come from a process improvement and cybersecurity background, and myself and my great team were attempting to solve a very, very deep-rooted problem, which is related to receipts. So before I go into receipts, I just want to kind of like decompose this to tell you who deals with receipts and what are the various problems which are very different between each entity. So we've got consumers like us sitting in this room, people who buy things. We are usually expected to store receipts in their various formats, whether it's paper or even worse, as an email. And then after we store them, the time would come one day for us to use them. So we'll have to look for them, and then not only there, we need to also take them and babysit them to do operations like expensing, like splitting a bill, adding a tip, returning an item, all those things that people do on a receipt today. Retailers, on the other hand, they have very high costs that people don't even think about to generate it's fake or not. And all this is hidden cost because that's the way it is. So also, of course, retailers, they don't mind having better consumer experience as well as analytics to know what you want to buy or to tell you what you need on that time. So, and of course, we have the third parties, people like corporate companies as well as insurance companies and government services who always rely on those receipts. And they have absolutely no way to verify that a receipt or its items are authentic. So you can get a receipt, go open Paint Shop, and then change whatever you want, and then the insurance will probably pay you because nobody can call the store and ask if this is real. So now the problem here is, again, it's divided into those three entities, and the retailers, they have very high hidden costs as well as missed opportunities, which we can talk about them later. We've got the consumers, which have decentralized content and operation. And again, I'm gonna focus on operation, which is all the operations that you do on receipts, which varies by store. Every store has its own policy. You gotta go check the website, see how you do things. It's very time consuming. It actually takes more time to expense few receipts than to request Uber and get in it, which shouldn't be the case. And you've got the third parties, and this is a humongous giant bubble of fraud. You've got expense fraud, you've got a lot of fraud. Duplicate data. You've got all sorts of fraud really on many levels, on corporate, on government, on many ways, and nobody can verify things. People, although it's very hard to ask companies, or especially retailers, about how they deal with receipts, you'll get this weird look, and they'll tell you, oh, you gotta call the corporate office. So from my findings, I found out that the main problem for all retailers consider that authenticity, in a similar fashion like how your browser, for example, validates that this is your bank website. There's nothing like this today. 45% of households still use cash for at least 33% of their purchases, and that's a huge market. So you can think of all cash payments in a way as the formation or the catalyst of forming the biggest analytical vacuum in retail. Because if you go buy milk and pay in cash, nobody on earth would know that you bought milk. So nobody can recommend for you the best milk for your need. Loyalty programs and store-specific apps, again, might not be the best way to the consumer's heart anymore, just because there's so many of them. I mean, you can't have a phone with every retailer app installed on it. It's just not going to work, and people expect that from you. Now the solution. All receipts, even those paid in cash, are in one place, and the way to operate on them, like expense, splitting, return, adding a tip, is uniform. So if you or your grandma want to return, it's always the same thing. You open the receipt, and you do the same action, and you do a return. You don't have to learn for every store. You don't have to learn for every receipt, whether it's online, whether it's a physical purchase. To you as a consumer, a receipt is a receipt no matter where it comes from. And that's how we intend to do it. For retailers, what are their incentives? Oh, sorry. Okay, the incentive for retailers is to save on hidden costs, to get better consumer experience, and to capitalize on the other functions like advertising, like rating, how you rate in Uber, all that stuff. And third parties, when authorized, you can actually allow a third party to automatically validate that this receipt is actually real. So this is the kind of solution we're trying to attempt to solve. Now this is only for the nerds like myself and my team. This only describes how this fits in that huge diversity jar that we call the hourglass model. And people who study communication engineering can relate a little bit, because that G in the middle represents the IP address, and this is how diversity in the internet is all combined into a point where you as a user, you don't see it. You don't see if it's a Wi-Fi, if it's 4G, if it's twisted pair cable. To you, internet is internet. You can use your Netflix the same way, no matter what. So now this is the way it looks. It's kind of like a messaging service. You just operate on things, whether on the receipt or the items inside it. It's like an IoT smart contract, really, and we call ourselves like the TLS or SSL. What we are to receipts, what TLS and SSL is to websites. So we're bringing accountability, we can perform things, and then of course, you can link any purchase to yourself during the checkout, so it's kind of seamless. Either you move your phone or you just click on the online to buy. Key differentiators, we're like the most holistic solution to the consumer's wallet because even with cash, this works. Least cost and effort for consumers, retailers, and corporate, and then of course, secure, interactive, because you do things from the receipt. Now, we have a few early adopters. We have Clock Kangaroo, it's an online store in Dubai, it's a startup. And we have Fluid Motor Union, which is a mechanic shop in Naperville, Chicago. These are two companies that want to start with us. And of course, we're getting a lot of strategic help from big names that you can see in here. Now, the market size is very interesting because everybody uses receipts. So for consumers, they're in the billions. Of course, they're freemium, nobody would pay for it. We charge retailers and third parties depending on how much they use because we're a cloud service, so it's an elastic service. You pay as much as you use. This way you're saving no matter what you do. You can. So I'm just going to go into the challenge number 2. Our greatest challenge right now is to meet people who are respected in the industry, who have a way to diffuse things into retailers, things that are a little bit new. Of course, this is something new. We have an international patent for it. We'd like people like Mavens, like people, community leaders who are respected to actually learn about us, know what we do, and maybe recommend us. This way somebody would try us and see how this operates. Of course, we want to also form strategic partnerships with companies that have also competitive advantage to go into retailers because this is a very, very tough space to enter, and we know that. That's it. So let's go to the FAQs this way if anybody wants to look at those. I'm not going to go through this, but you guys can look. These are the most common questions I've got in the last 5 years. So I put them all on one page. This way you guys can take a look at them. Thank you.
All right. So Hani has now got 5 minutes left to give feedback. Did you enjoy yourself up here? I mean, he was just up here enjoying himself. He's sweating. He's been in the hot seat. All right. So what is the critical thing that you want to get help from the group?
We want to get help from people who actually can get us to go in front of retailers and at least demonstrate. This is such a tough area to enter in retailer space. You're entering into the POS system.
So what you want is warm introductions.
Yes, sir.
Okay, to people who have connections with retailers.
Yes.
So who's the person inside of the company that you would need to meet? What's their job title?
It could be people like, for example, Accenture. They have a lot of partners in the retail space. Some of them, they're in different verticals like healthcare, and there's various incentives depending on the industry itself.
Give me your target company, one.
Target company, Walmart.
Walmart.
Yes, sir.
What's the job title at the person?
Product development manager or VP or even CEO.
Perfect. Okay. Does anybody know a product development manager or what's the second one?
VP.
Or a VP at a company like Walmart or other companies similar to Walmart? We'll start there. Does anybody know anyone in your network who's even remotely acquainted to a position like that? Xavier.
Yeah, I know the suppliers from Walmart who would be able to negotiate that, but I don't know the folks at Walmart.
So if you were to go to one of your friends who's a supplier at Walmart and say, hey, I've got a company that's early stage, they're in this space, what they're looking to do, they're not trying to sell you. They actually just want to get 15, 20 minutes of your time to share what they're doing and learn where they may close the gap. Do you think that you could get them connected to the right person in Walmart?
I think I can get them. I can get you in the door to their suppliers. You got to get yourself in the door, figure out how to get into Walmart from there.
I'm good with doors.
But if it's getting, it'd be more like specialty. I know folks in specialty food, so they would be suppliers like Whole Foods, Mariano's, those types of companies.
Excellent. That's perfect
for us too. That's how it's big business doesn't really matter.
Okay, so outside of like the Walmarts, like stores, what other types of organizations would be a good fit for you to just get in and do? Because it sounds like you want to do some live demos, get your product in front of people and learn, right?
Online is great. I mean, you guys, I see a lot of people with startups here.
We can be, you know, we can be your, in the checkout page of yours, where you give your consumers a great incentive.
So here's the thing though, right now you're like, come one, come all, come anyone.
Yes.
It's hard for people to help you.
Yeah.
Because if you're for everyone, you're not for anyone specifically. So who else outside of the Walmart's like one Target that is, yeah.
Well, we're meeting tomorrow to talk about it, but I do have a client and friend who recently left Nordstrom. He's an executive there, reported directly to Nordstrom. I also have another client who lives in Bentonville. His job is at Chobani, and he manages the Chobani relationship with Walmart. So I don't know that he's going to have the one name, but it's a conversation.
That's how it starts. Thank you so much. We'll talk.
Do you have any females as part of the executive team?
We had actually in the design stages before we met this gentleman Alex. We've had a lady who helped us with the UI UX
And our database.
and the database. Yeah, but right now, as at the moment, no, we don't have. Of course, we want to make it a very diversified and balanced company.
When you do have a contact with Walgreens, it has to be, you have to have a woman that's part of your executive team. Not just, like, don't go rush out and just get a woman.
Good morning.
If there comes a point where that happens, her role is a diverse supplier. She decides who goes into different Walgreens.
Oh.
But there needs to be a woman.
Excellent. Thank you. I didn't know that. Thank you.
Yeah, so, but don't go out and do anything crazy. And I'll say that again, do not just go hire someone woman, right? Like, when that happens, or
If anything, we'll use the STD startup if there's any.
But for sure, we have
I'm joking, guys. All right.
We've got about 30 more seconds. Anybody have
Any questions?
Any quick questions? Court, come on.
Yeah, just a technical question. So how is that integrated with like payment system? If there's already an
We don't care how you
10
pay.
second answer.
We care that your payment went through. That's my short answer.
All right. Everybody give a hand to Pay Data.
Thank you very much.
So what we are going to do moving forward is I left them an opportunity because Paid Adam is an earlier stage company. I wanted to give them an opportunity to just go and just see where the gaps were. What I'm going to do moving forward is just make sure we stay at that 3 minutes, 1 minute, and then 10 minutes. So with this presentation, it's a good time to do that because one of our founders, one of our companies, WeSolve, they're actually in Techstars in Seattle. And so the point of these help decks is they're supposed to be simple enough where someone who doesn't even know you, doesn't even necessarily know your business, could sit down in 3 minutes less and understand it. So I'm actually going to present their deck. I haven't looked at it outside of the feedback that I gave them on their first 2 drafts, but we'll see how it goes. Okay. So WeSolve. Companies are struggling to find the right talent. And on 2 sides, one side you got students, they're unable to highlight their skills beyond outdated resumes, the general ways of finding companies that are looking to hire them. A lot of companies are actually mishiring people due to ineffective information and due to not being able to see people how they perform on the front end before they actually make pull the trigger. NBA employers are actually losing $1 billion annually on mishires. So they're trying to find diversity, they're screening with biased and unreliable resumes, and there's 70% attrition with their hires within 2 years. That equates to $150,000 that they're losing with every single wrong hire. So this team is poised to solve the problem because they've got a set of advisors who's very experienced. They've actually dealt with this. They've got deans of universities. They've got individuals who've run large companies like Reddit. And Stella herself, she used to work for a large market research firm. She actually has been doing this for the last 1.5 years or so and has moved pretty quickly in terms of recruiting a team and growing the company. They've worked with Salesforce and other companies already. Their product, WeSolve, actually connects companies to top candidates nationwide to solve real business challenges. So they put a challenge out for the company and the people actually go to work solving that. So they don't come and say, here's what I've done, here's why you should hire me. They actually prove out their skill set in real time. And the companies decide based on their performance whether or not they want to hire those people. The companies actually, as a result, connect with more diverse candidates than traditional funnels. and enables them to make more successful hires. Key differentiators between WeSolve and every other organization that's trying to do this through software, online and offline. WeSolve actually has strong diversity reach and performance-based screening. Very different than a recruiter sitting on the other side of the table and saying, well, I feel this way, I feel that way. It's based strictly on numbers and strictly on performance in real-time situations. Salesforce has actually been one of their first clients. They, in San Francisco, did a Salesforce challenge where they brought out their top recruiters, they brought in MBA students, and they gave them a real challenge to solve in real life. And Salesforce actually paid for that. They found some quality candidates, and I know that I think they hired 1 to 2 of those people after that challenge. So they actually produced some real results for students. Since their launch in January, they've got 1,600 users, 60 from programs, they're all top 25, 50% women, underrepresented minorities more than 70%, and they've tripled their user base since their winter pilot. Market size is $1 billion in the MBA recruiting market, and their near future expansion, what they're focusing on is other graduate disciplines and non-student experience hires. That's a total available market of $45 billion. Their customer strategy, enterprise companies that are focused on tech, financial services, CPG, 1 to 10,000 employees, 30 MBA hires per year. And that equals companies that have big hiring budgets. Pricing model is an annual subscription. Customer segments, enterprise companies, startup and growth stage companies, both who have budgets and are looking to actually fill a diversity gap and hire people. And examples of enterprise companies, Fortune 1000, average subscription $100,000 and up. Per project fee is $1,000. In startup growth stage, less than $10 million annual revenue, average subscription $2,000 up to $3,000, and $500 per project fee. So their biz dev tactics, how they actually go about finding clients, is with students. They have 16 formal B-School partners. They network effect driven by content marketing and social media, so they put out things on social media, actually drive traffic to their sites. And they have partnerships with national and campus diversity organizations. On the business side, they have a B2B sales model that also focuses on case studies, white papers on social media, and referral partners. So how they actually get to a client. 30 warm intros from people that are their formal partners equals 15 meetings, so they have about a 50% close rate getting to a meeting. Hit 15 meetings, they usually end up with 5 proposals. Out of those 5 proposals, that usually equals 3 pilots. And based on that, their incubator and accelerator intros, they're at about 65% of how they actually get to their meetings. That they come from incubators, conferences, and events. They meet about 30% of the people that they pitch to, and out of their personal network is about 5%. So the top milestone that they've got, that they're trying to reach right now, is determining and solidifying pricing structure beyond the pilot phase. And I'm going to check my time. I've got just under 10 minutes left. Looks like we did okay. So we've got about 10 minutes left to give WeSolve some information. They are actually watching from Seattle. I told them that I'll present on their behalf because I didn't want them to miss out on the opportunity just because they're doing great. So if you all have feedback on how they actually determine and solidify their pricing structure beyond pilot phase, I'm going to go back to their pricing model here. I'd love to get your feedback. So has anybody in the room dealt with enterprise pricing on software? Patrick, you can come on up. While you're talking, I'm going to share what I know about it. So my enterprise pricing, my software platform, we actually have a $10,000 license. And how we settled on that number annually, it used to be a free product. That's when we started, and we went to $3,500. There was no real math behind this. $10,000, I've talked to people across different industries. It's a low enough number where people can commit pretty quickly if they like it. If it's a business, if it's a true enterprise offering, it's a high enough number where you actually don't get laughed out of the room, because if your price is too low, enterprises actually won't deal with you. So I actually think that the subscription model, I don't know if I would go that route. I might actually just charge a flat rate per project fee for a while until they have enough people and enough social proof, and then look at going to a subscription model. That's probably how I would approach it in the early stage. Patrick.
So I'll share just kind of my method for being able to figure out what I did thus far. First, I looked at who I wanted to actually make a sale to. So my original target was to manufacturing plants individually, and I had knowledge of how much money they could spend under their own plant budget, where it would come from. So basically, how much I could ask right to that point where they could actually say yes and get the approval within the plant without having to kick it up to their boss. So right where that number was, I literally priced it at $1 lower than that. And that's what it was. So that was the strategy that I did initially.
So Terry, I know you have a lot of people. Come on up. And starting out, I mean, so we have some startups in the room. A lot of it is not, super scientific in the beginning. You press until there's someone balks, and then you figure out, okay, well, I think I've met my threshold now. But if nobody is balking, your price point is way too low.
Yeah, so where are they?
They're
Where's the camera?
Seattle and Techstars right now. Stella. Oh, the camera's right there.
Hey guys. Okay, so this is kind of in line with what Thomas and Patrick just said. So for me, I just make it up, right? I'm literally making it up. I'm asking, the first thing I'm doing is doing an exploratory call, where I'm mainly just asking questions about what they're trying to accomplish. And then specifically for me, the kind of trick is asking about either what their budget is or about what they're paying for currently, like what are they currently doing. And specifically, usually people are reluctant to give you specific numbers. So what I specifically do is I give them a really outrageous range. So I say is it like $10 or $20,000? Or like $10, like $100,000? And they're like, no, it's not $100,000. It's more like 50, and then you have your number, right? So that's the specific tactic that I use. And then I price somewhere around there. And then I never do monthly for enterprise, but I will do quarterly options. Usually that's just more aligned with what they're doing. And they almost always take the annual, so you want to give them the 2-month discount if they take the annual, and for them it's usually easier to do that anyway, and they're done with it. So you just want to kind of give them that incentive, and it gives you a little bit more reason to pump up the price a little bit if they do choose to kind of take that risk. And then the only other thing I was going to say is you just completely make it up. So I just sold an enterprise deal today, and the nice thing about enterprise stuff is that you don't have to put the price on the website. You can just do the request a quote, and then you get to kind of do a different pricing for everyone, and you get to do custom pricing because you're going to do something custom planned for them. And that's how I would kind of build it out.
Anybody? Yeah, go ahead.
Can you go back to that? Oh, the one other thing I was going to say is your per project fees are so small that they're almost insignificant. If you're doing a 100K deal, I would even just simplify the pricing model if you can, and instead of I think it's nice to have multiple tiers, but maybe instead of having that per project fee, which is so nominal for them, yeah, you can waive it, but they don't care about that $1,000. I think what might be better is to have that quarterly versus annual or some other kind of tier option.
Okay. Any other feedback on enterprise? Yes.
So working for a large enterprise, we see all kinds of different things and different pricing structures. The first thing I'll tell you is the second you put a number on paper, you've just set your ceiling, right? So, and the number just comes down from there, and that's it. So you have to be, one, unwavering in the number you put and do not budge. And second, when you put a flat fee on something, what's going to happen is that, a good example of this, I don't know if anybody's familiar with Jira, right, which is a project management system. Back in the day, I think they used to charge $3,000 for Jira, or something really small. Well, we for the enterprise, we scaled that thing to be, several thousand users. And they're like, wait, you guys are only paying us $3,000 and you have 10,000 users on this thing. So the second you put a number, that's your ceiling, and the number just goes down from there, and they're going to negotiate you to as cheap as possible because they have professional negotiators and things like that. So just one point on dealing with enterprise and pricing.
So before you leave, I've got a quick question. one thing that I do that I'm curious about, so there's a license and then based on usage, like you pay more, not in terms of the subscription, but like you pay more if you go over a certain threshold. What do you think about models like that, where there's a baseline license plus you buy what you use?
How do you monitor it? How do you monitor it? So how do you know somebody's gone over?
So it's based on my particular software, I know how many micro surveys that people are responding to.
So yours runs in the cloud, so you can, right. I mean, if it works for you, then to scale it up, then that seems fine, right? It's just it's more making sure that the enterprise is not gonna take advantage of your pricing structure.
So your best suggestion, being on the enterprise side, is what? Just take each individual deal and kind of price it based on that? Like what you think their usage is going to be? Or
yeah, I think you look at how they're going to use it as a firm, and you'll have your kind of baseline just core operating numbers. Like here's what I need to run this, right? And then try to squeeze them for as much as you can, because everyone's going to squeeze you different, right? So you go to Goldman Sachs, or you go to JP, or you go to Cisco. Everyone's going to kind of come up with a different way that they're going to try to squeeze you, right? And so maybe doing it on a per usage or a per survey for you might be the best way to go forward. So we charge 50 cents per survey or something, $1 or something like that. I don't know what it costs you to make a survey, but for you that might be a reasonable way to do it. And that way, if you do it on a per survey approach, it's the utility going to the business, right? So they said, okay, well, we're actually paying for this, not a lot, but the more we use it, we're actually getting something out of it. So we know for the more we pay, the more value we're getting. Versus like when you come in, you pay these big contracts. Like I've seen it where we've gotten, you come in with a big contract, we spend $3 million and we just never use it. I guess you got $3 million out of the deal, but you've also been tarnished, right? Like they brought it in, couldn't get it to work, so now you have a failed implementation on your hands.
Can something like that work for WeSolve, where since they're actually doing a performance-based approach, they say, maybe even cut out the fee, or even, I don't know what they do with the per project fee, but based on a company actually hiring recruits, charge them a higher dollar amount based on like real results. You found somebody great, and you get paid based on that.
Yeah. So I always look to the CEO of Evernote, right? And what did he say? He said, in order to get 100 million customers to pay, you have to have 1 billion users, right? And so you're going to focus on those core features that people are willing to pay for. And so you can give away certain things that you don't use, that are just to get your foot in the door. But then those killer features, like I pay for Evernote, right? Because I want to be able to, I learn all these different things. Well, I have to pay $37 a month or whatever it is a year. But to get people to pay for that, right? You have to have that killer feature that people really need, and that actually gives utility back to the business.
Thank you. All right. This actually wasn't right now. That's time. So we have one last presentation of the evening. It's actually a man that's been adding a lot of value this evening. His name is Patrick Anderson. It's right there in the back of the room in that lovely red sweater. Patrick, if you would please approach the front. Can we give Patrick a hand?
All right, good evening. My name is Patrick Anderson. I'm the founder and CEO of OpX Apps. So OpX Apps, so there are two problems that the company is focused on. One of them is that continuous improvement managers that work in manufacturing, they're typically charged with delivering the savings of about 10% back off the cost of a plant and they typically have only been able to achieve about 3% of this, which basically makes their job at risk, and also doesn't add value for the plants to be able to really produce and sell. And from studies, it's been shown that about 62% of them don't feel really supported to be able to do their jobs, and they don't have the right tools or capabilities to be able to do it. All right. So out of this, just a little about myself or the team. I can't get this thing to work. All right. Currently, I'm an Army of One. So this is just a little bit about my background. I have education background in chemical engineering and also a business degree from Xavier. For about the last 20 years, I've worked in manufacturing with several large CPG companies, and also I have several certifications in continuous improvement to include Six Sigma, WCM, and TPM. All right, so the product that's been developed for the screens that we have, OpEx Apps is really designed to use technology to be able to support the methodology of continuous improvement. So thus far, it's been a very antiquated way that this methodology is applied. People are still writing things down on paper forms and handing them in, which causes a lot of issues to where information is lost, and as a result, the machines aren't getting the right attention to make sure that the production happens as scheduled. So 2 solutions that have been developed thus far. Technology solutions have been one around maintenance reliability. So this is like a suite of apps that target to hit the minor stops, breakdowns, and changeovers that are necessary on any type of production line. So how do you do that efficiently and effectively, and ultimately get to the point where you don't have any unplanned downtime on your equipment. The other one was actually something that was developed really from the pull of the customer, where there was a need for support to be able to drive safety actually in a construction area. So this app was actually developed to be able to drive safety audits, incident reports, and also to be able to do a pre-assessment from a safety standpoint out in the field. So proof of concept around those for the maintenance reliability one. One of our customers, which is Coca-Cola Valley Consolidated, we've today trained 115 people, serviced 6 of their plants, and brought a savings to them of $680K. For PMI, which was our construction client, we've been able to improve their results to where they had 93% compliance for their safety results. They've had an 80% time reduction on being able to do those safety audits, and they've had 100% data accuracy as a result of that. Now, as we look at the market size, for our market, we're targeting CPG companies. And even though there's like a lot of opportunity from continuous improvement, really it's just because that's where my background is, so I'm starting where I know. So there's a little bit over 62,000 factories that classify as CPG, specifically CPG and food and beverage within the United States. In the greater Chicago area, which is about 3 hours, there's 724 of them. So that's where the target is thus far. I think I just kind of went through this. This is just to give an idea of the pricing model. So pricing wise, going with some various options for different levels of service, which include a basic, professional, and customized, which one goes to using one of the modules, whether it be the safety or the maintenance reliability, up to 50 users in the plant, and then the other one goes to a 2-system suite. And then we also offer that we do a custom design, which that one is to be determined based on the scope. And then also there's a bit of a menu as far as like support options that we have for our sites, because a lot of them require coaching and on-site visits. So as we get into the acquisition strategy, again, we want to focus more so on Illinois and that radius coming out of Chicago. So 2 things as far as acquisition. One has been marketing and email campaign through LinkedIn, so trying to use that to be able to really identify who those decision makers are, and activity within LinkedIn to be able to drive activity to our website, and also set up meetings with those decision makers, and also partnering with organizations such as IMEC, which IMEC basically is a federally funded organization that basically helps to foster manufacturing and specifically continuous improvement within the state of Illinois. Just a little bit about our sales process. So we really started actively doing work and doing sales about a year ago, so around April of 2017. Within that time, we've had about 27 connections. Out of those 27 connections, we've had 9 contracts that were acquired, and the average out of that has been about $20,000 for each one of them. And then we currently have about 3 contracts that are in the pipeline. So as we look at business goals for 2018, the projected revenue is somewhere between 425 to 813K. We've already got contracts that are either complete or in the pipeline to cover 100,000 of that. And then there's about, I guess, maximum of 638 that's in the pipeline. And then from the algorithms on sales and how much, I guess to kind of give us some idea, we're expecting another 75K out of that. All right. So I'll kind of revise this as far as the challenge wise, kind of taking the feedback I've heard from the other plants. Specifically, I'm looking for support to be able to really drill into and take over the market that's immediately within that 3-mile radius. Like, I really want to make sure that our products and services are in the plants within that greater Chicago area. So being able to have like the right people and the right approach to be able to tailor our marketing and our sales campaigns, that's really the type of feedback and such that's required for us to be able to grow within this area.
Can you be a little more specific? So you said the right people and the right product. What specifically can the people in this room tonight help with?
Sure. So it's really connections. Like, if anybody knows folks that are either within plant manager, VP operations, or VP continuous improvement positions, because those are usually the high influencers and or decision makers as to whether or not they would accept this type of service or look for this type of product.
So is the only thing you want right now possible introductions?
Introductions is the primary part of it. Yes.
Okay. So beyond that, so we can do that real quick. Does anybody in the room like have any specific people in their network that kind of match that archetype that Patrick is looking for? So beyond that, like, what can people in the room help you with to solve for your business tonight? Because that's like, okay, we go in our black book, and maybe we have somebody, maybe we don't. But you got 5 minutes to ask some. Go ahead, Sarah.
So I just thought of someone that I know. So I don't know if they're big enough for you, but I know the person who has that Trinola manufacturing. I don't know if they're big enough for manufacturing operations. Are you familiar with Trinola?
The watch.
Yeah, they're like they're based out of Detroit. They're a watch company.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other specific challenges with the business that you need to think through right now?
That's really the main part of it. I mean, for me, it's been a lot of trial and error. So let's see, if there are folks that have very successful, I guess, methods for being able to sell technology specifically. Because one of the things that I'll add, the level of, I guess, progress I've been able to make thus far has been by coupling the technology with consulting and workforce development. So I've really kind of been using like that as like, I guess, a gateway drug for the technology. So I get them hooked on the technology as I do other services for them. But what I definitely like to grow and go to is to where the technology is being sold on its own. So that would be something definitely.
So I have some feedback about that for sure. So with my service, I know that I thought that it was going to be something I could just sell software as a service right out of the gate. We did all this development and found out that people weren't really clear what microfeedback was, how they use it, And so for several years, you know, we've had all this stuff sitting here, all these features that we thought everybody would want. And I sell like the most basic part of what we do, and people pay a lot of money for it. It took a year and a half for me to figure out I need to stop selling all this other stuff. So part of what I have to do is train the marketplace, because microfeedback doesn't really exist in its current form. So it has to be kind of semi-consultative right now. And I hope to take the white gloves off sometime soon, but if I just sell my software by itself, it will sit on the shelf. And you talked about that earlier. Yeah, I can get a check now, but there's no renewal coming the next year. There's no extension of the pilot, and there's no recommendations coming from that. So I would say, for now, you know, what you're doing is different, you know, and you know the market better than anybody else, having been in your position running plants for so many years. Do the white glove thing for a while, and when you get enough clients, and they get to the point where they're saying, hey, do we have to keep paying you to do this? That's the point where you actually say, no, you don't. I can actually offload this to you. I'm happy to do it. It's going to cost more. We're going to have to build you out a custom solution. And if they ask you, well, why don't you have something already built? Well, we've been waiting to make sure that we could build something specifically for the client that wanted that. We didn't want to spend a bunch of money on stuff that nobody wants. So that's been my approach. And it takes a little bit longer when you're doing something new. But, you know, you can kind of build a moat around yourself because you're going to grow through referrals. So hopefully that's helpful. I just thought I'd sit in this awkward silence. So Patrick has about a minute and a half left. Tara, you've got one more thing to
Yeah, I
say?
just had one more thing. So, this is awesome. I think that the only thing that, like, you talked about the LinkedIn strategy that you're doing, right? Like, are you actually messaging them on the LinkedIn platform?
It starts there, yes.
Okay. So, like, I started off doing a bunch of that for, like, enterprise software sales, too. And I find that, like, people just, like, aren't sitting there on their LinkedIn as much as I would like for them to be. So, and I'm totally blanking on the name of the software I use. I'll look it up. But it layers over LinkedIn, so what it does is it makes it, it's pretty good, it makes its best guess at the email address for the person, but based on, it looks at the, like, pattern, like, a lot of places do, like, first initial dot last name at, you know, like, they have a pattern that they use. So it gets pretty close to it, and so what I do is I either do it myself or have my virtual assistant in the Philippines just like, oh, here's the job description you're looking for, go over all bunch of these pages and put them in a spreadsheet with their name and their email and make it a little bit more personal information. And then I use a software tool called Mixmax to send out like the email sequence. You want a 3-part email sequence because like people just don't respond to the first email. And so like I have some templates too if it's useful that people have been using in different industries that work. But I think that given that you're reaching out to like 6 people a day, I think you actually are at a point where you need higher volume to actually get to that one meeting or call or whatever.
Wait, I plus one that quickly. I just hired someone off of Upwork that does like lead generation and gave them like $250, and they used all these tools and came back with 500 emails and names and titles and books. So yeah, I'm experimenting with it now. Talking to them, trying to see like how it works. But yeah, I'll see.
At the enterprise level, just so you know, most of that goes right into the spam filter though. Like, I mean, it rarely gets through. I saw one get through yesterday and I was like, how'd that get through? Right? So like, it's pretty, I mean, it's very rare to get one through, and even when you get one through, like, you know, the people you're targeting it just goes right to the dead bucket. So, the personal touch is by far the best way. Getting in front of people using your network is far superior than trying to blast emails out. Because I don't know how effective it is, but I know how I react when I get them, and it's still really fun.
I think it requires you too to be really good at crafting good emails.
Yeah, we have a lot of events to talk to people like you say trade shows and stuff like that. Just those guys, if they're lead Oregon or something like that, they don't be looking for stuff like this. So.
And one thing, you work in a lot of great organizations doing a lot of good things. The people that still work for those companies reach out to them and say, hey, this is what I'm doing right now. Who else do you know? Like that's super effective. That's what we know.
All right. Everybody give Patrick a hand. All right, y'all. So we have come to the end of the hot seat. I wanna just take a moment to thank everybody who stayed to the end. This was grueling. This is like 10 companies, 15 minutes, telling you what they're good at, what they're not great at, what challenges they have. But somebody's got to actually have to stand in the gap for these people and say, we care enough to struggle with you a little bit. We care enough to like share with you this time and actually give back. So for y'all who actually stayed all the way to the end, because I know you have families and you have new babies at home, give yourselves a round of applause. Seriously. So, again, this is the first time we've done this. Some stuff I thought worked really well. Some stuff I didn't think worked as well. And I want to learn from like how this went, because I think that there's something in this formula that can make a difference for people who are trying to build something. So if you would, like, do me a favor, email me, text me, come up and talk to me. Tell me what can make this actually something that can reoccur. That can actually reoccur and make an impact for people in this community. Thank you for your time. Feel free to grab some more food, and I'll see you next time. Take care.
You too, man. Let's talk about that. better now, man. You look like you slow down, man.